What is human papillomavirus, ma'am?
HPV is most common mode of transmission and most established mode of transmission is sexual contact. That sexual contact can be skin to skin, it can be even orogenital, or it can be even anal.
If somebody has a faithful partner and if they also remain faithful, is there still a chance of HPV infection?
There are rare possibilities that HPV can be transmitted by other non-penetrative intercourse.
So, how exactly does this HPV virus cause cervical cancer?
Theoretically speaking, see, HPV not only causes cervical cancer, it can cause vaginal cancer, vulval cancer, penile cancer, anal cancer.
Cervical cancer is the second most common Indian women cancer.
Yes.
Welcome to OncoFlex podcast. I am Dr. Lohit Reddy, consultant radiation oncologist at HCG Hospitals, Bangalore.
And I'm Dr. Kritika, consultant radiation oncologist at HCG Bangalore.
Today, our topic of discussion is going to be unmasking the silent invader, the human papillomavirus, cervical cancer, and the power of prevention. Today, we have with us our special guest, Dr. Abhilasha Narayan. She is the director of gynec oncology at HCG Hospitals. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
So, what is human papillomavirus, ma'am?
It's a broad terminology. There are it's a very big group of viruses where there are more than 100 varieties, but most of them do not harm humans. And only a few types, maybe about 15 to 20 high risk varieties are there, which are known to cause cancers, and some low risk type which are known to cause some orogenital warts.
So, how is this HPV acquired, ma'am? Is it acquired because of poor hygienic practices?
HPV is most common mode of transmission and most established mode of transmission is sexual contact. That sexual contact can be skin to skin, it can be even orogenital, or it can be even anal. So all types of sexual contacts is the most established way of transmission. And poor sexual hygiene, poor menstrual hygiene, poor oral hygiene, all these are related to increased susceptibility for HPV infection. Why? Because in the background of infection and poor hygiene, HPV sustains more.
So, talking about cervical cancer, there is always a question if a person is unmarried or if a person has never had sexual contact, is there a risk of that patient having an HPV infection?
There are rare possibilities that HPV can be transmitted by other non-penetrative intercourse, like skin to skin contact,
Okay.
or there can be a vertical transmission from mother to child, or very rarely even a vertical transmission can be during vaginal delivery, or even there are documented reports of transplant placental transmission also. So yes, even unmarried girls or virgins can get HPV infection, but the possibility is very rare.
We always associated HPV infection to multiple sexual partners. If somebody has a faithful partner and if they also remain faithful, is there still a chance of HPV infection?
Yes, there are possibilities that even you have a faithful partner. Why? Because the other person might have contacted that virus from a non-sexual transmitted, and then he can transmit to the faithful partner. So there are chances, yes.
So, talking about the genital warts, could that also be a predisposing factor to cancer? If a person has vaginal warts, is that a predisposing factor for cervical cancer?
In absolute way, no. Why? Because they are caused by low risk HPVs. But HPVs are known to infect with multiple strains. So if you have a low risk HPV, there are chances that you might even have high risk HPV, which might be the cause for cancer rather than the viruses which causes the wart.
So when we talk of HPV, somehow the focus is always on women. HPV and cervical cancer and women. But more often, we find that men may also be equally involved with respect to being infected or getting cancers with respect to men also. So, what is your opinion on this?
Men are not sometimes involved. I think they are always involved because the most major mode of transmission is sexual transmission. But the thing is, the most affected are women. That's why I think they are in the limelight. More than 90%, or even I would say 99% of cervical cancer are caused by HPV, and it is the second most common cancer in women in India. So we all assume and presume and try to treat only women. But the partner also is the culprit. But most of the time they do not get affected. Why? Because the incidence of anal cancers, penile cancers, and oral cancers is much, much less compared to cervical cancer.
Okay.
So HPV, because HPV is sexually transmitted, both are equally affected.
Ma'am, we spoke about 100 different types of HPV viruses. What are the most commonest viruses you see which impacts women of cervical cancer in India?
16 and 18 are the most aggressive varieties found to cause cervical cancer, or most prevalent in cervical cancers. But there are other 12 to 13 more identified by FDA as high risk varieties. So when we are testing, also we test for these 13 to 14 types of high risk HPV, that is 16, 18, 31, 33, 35. And also vaccines also do cover these main 5 viruses.
Okay.
So how exactly does this HPV virus cause cervical cancer, madam?
See, HPV infection is very common. If you take incidence and prevalence, they can be as high as 30 to 40% in certain populations like African population and all that. And maybe Europeans, it is little less. Incidence and prevalence is less than 10%. But what I mean to say is everybody gets infected, but HPV doesn't cause cancer in all. 90%, more than 90% of the infections are warded off by the body within a year or two by our natural immunity. Only in those 5 to 10% of the cases which persist for a really long time, and then if you give it a background of lowered immunity and other risk factors or favorable factors for HPV to progress more, then only we get precancerous condition leading on to cancers.
This is a very interesting fact, but even with the 10% persistence, cervical cancer is the second most common Indian women cancer.
Yes.
So in your clinic, what is the earliest symptoms of HPV infection?
Only for warts we have symptoms. For other HPV infection per se, there are no symptoms. It can be asymptomatic in most of the individual. You will get to know only when tested or when it has already caused some precancerous or cancerous conditions.
So in Indian men, smoking associated cancers are the most common group of cancers that we see. Whereas in women, as we said, cervical cancer is the second most common. We always say that primary smoking, if the patient is a smoker, that is a risk for HPV infection and cervical cancer indirectly. So what about the fact that men who smoke or partners who smoke acquiring the HPV virus and transmitting it to them? So husband being a smoker, is it a risk factor for cervical cancer too?
I am not very sure because HPV in men has not been studied so well as compared to HPV in women. So the incidence and prevalence in men, the etiology, where it progresses, and only in who are susceptible to penile, anal, vaginal anal or laryngeal cancers are very difficult to predict because there are no particular studies to tell. As such, what smoking does is it lowers your immunity, local immunity basically. So you are not warding off the infection, your local immunity is reduced. So virus doesn't go and persist for a longer time, giving it time to basically attack our body.
So if a patient is infected with HPV virus, or if the patient is having early signs of cervical cancer, can it be completely asymptomatic in these patients? Or is it, what do you see in your clinic? Do you have, absolute symptoms where you can say patients need to go check themselves, cervical cancer?
See, prevention is not when you go to the doctor once you have signs and symptoms. prevention is you should go to the doctor when prevention and screening is you should go to the doctor when you're a normal individual, basically. So there is no talk, there is no concept of prevention at all if you're going to the doctor once you have symptoms. Coming to cervical cancer per se, early stages really do not have symptoms, so it's a myth. What all these abnormal discharge, bleeding, pain, discomfort, they're all seen in later stages of cancer.
Okay.
So you tend to miss it. So screening is always when you go to the doctor when you're normal, not wait for these symptoms to come when disease has already come and progress to an extent where curability slightly reduces.
Very nice.
From the time somebody acquires a HPV infection, how long does it take for a cervical cancer to form?
As I said, within 1 or 2 years, if you have a good immunity and your body has a potential, it usually wards it off in 1 or 2 years. If it doesn't and persists and it starts to happens here is the virus DNA of the HPV gets integrated into the cell if it persists longer, and the viral DNA starts to dictate the cervical cells to divide rather than the cervical cell normal cellular DNA. So that's when all this havoc begins. For this to happen, your local immunity, your general immunity should be really down. If especially in the background of poor hygiene, background infection, inflammation, background HIV, if you're on long-term steroids or if you're on immunosuppressants, or plus age also. So all these factors will make this HPV to progress and proliferate and integrate with the DNA of the cell. But this duration, based on all these factors, varies from as short as 6 months, 1 year, to as long as 15 to 20 years. So that is why we get such a long window in very healthy individuals. If you are maintaining very healthy lifestyle, you get a window of almost 15 to 20 years during which the HPV would have probably just staying there, or it has caused some very early precancerous conditions which can be detected and treated, and in the long term cervical cancer doesn't develop in them. But if they have all these risk factors, we have seen like in HIV positive patients those who are on even on treatment, we have seen as early as within 6 months to a year for cervical cancer to develop.
Ma'am, if at all you're talking about screening prevention, in your clinic, if you detect HPV virus, what suggestions or what advice do you give to patients? Are there any drugs to control the HPV infection, or do you suggest even for patients who have completed the family to undergo surgery?
First of all, the prevalence of HPV is so high in sexually active women, especially when they start their sexual activity. If you actually start doing testing similar to your screening for cervical cancer very early on, you will get more HPV positive cases. That is why the WHO has recommended HPV testing to be done only after 30 years of age. So at least by that time you would have given body time for it to ward it off, and your anxiety level also comes down, because once you detect HPV, everybody will think they will develop cervical cancer. And once HPV infection occurs, it's very difficult to treat a HPV infection, because most of the time it does not do any harm, more than 90% of the time. What we have to do as clinicians and as patient also is very regularly keep testing yourself to see whether your HPV has caused harm to your cervix.
Okay.
That is by doing regular pap smears. You go to your doctor, get regular pap smears done. If the HPV is just there and not done any abnormal changes in your cervix, then you need not have to treat anything else. You just have to improve your immunity, lead a healthy lifestyle, probably take help of some vaccination also, and then over a period of time the HPV does go away. But there is no treatment as such for HPV infection. But if HPV infection causes changes or precancerous condition, that needs to be promptly diagnosed and treated immediately.
Okay, so what are these precancerous conditions which people need to be aware of?
They are called basically CIN 1, 2 and 3. CIN1 is also called cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. These are all precancerous conditions. They are not at all cancer. 1, 2, and 3, as the name itself suggests, 1 is a very low risk change which is caused by HPV or some other infections also sometime. So the chances of it getting converted to CA in the long run is less than 1%. So once you treat that, these are all confirmed by biopsies only. Once you treat that, you are just on follow up to see whether it recurs in some other area. That's it.
And how do you
Uh,
treat that, ma'am?
The 80%, 70 to 80% of the time, body itself will heal CIN1,
Okay.
like HPV. Self regression can be as high as 70 to 80% in some, but if you take average of many studies, they say it's only 50 to 60%.
Okay.
But rest all, if it persists for more than 1 or 2 years, we can excise that bit of cervix.
Okay.
Where CIN, we have something called colposcopy, where we visualize the cervix under magnification. We apply certain chemicals on the cervix, which highlights us the areas under focus. So we will get to know which is a CIN1 area, and with small instruments, we either burn it or coagulate it or we excise it. There are different ways to do it for CIN1.
Mhm.
For 2, also similar management. 2 has little slightly increased risk compared to 1, maybe about 5 to 8%. But the most dangerous precancerous condition is CIN3. It's not always that it follows HPV, follows a path of CIN1, 2, and then 3. Very rarely, very aggressive variety, especially HPV 18 and 16 and all that, can directly de novo cause a CIN3 lesion.
Okay.
So that time, the conversion rate to CA can be as high as 20-25%.
Mhm.
So CIN3 should be treated like carcinoma in situ, and you have to treat it immediately, depending on the fertility needs of the patient. If she's completed family, you can go ahead with little more radical treatment. If she's not completed family, only CIN3 areas can be identified colposcopically, and that can be excised. We call it as LEAP or LEATS procedure, where we excise only that part of CIN3 and then follow her up.
Okay.
So this is very interesting given the average long duration between cancer causation to HPV acquisition. So if a woman is detected with any of these precancer lesions, even without a hysterectomy or uterus removal, with simple procedures, you can get rid of it.
Yes, the simple procedures can prevent cancer from developing in the long run.
So, madam, with respect to HPV DNA testing and pap smear, so how do you see it? Has HPV DNA testing added value to pap smear testing? You did mention that in pap smear you see the cellular changes, which has actually been caused by the virus, whereas HPV DNA is the actual detection of the virus. It may be present without causing any change also. So how has the integration of the two tests helped in the clinic?
Co-testing is very important to determine the significance of any lesion you see on cervix. Women will have so many hormonal changes, so many sexually transmitted infections, other things which causes erosions, infection. They all look similar to a CA, basically. So when you do a biopsy, even before doing a biopsy, if you find abnormal cells, interpretation will be good if it occurs in the background of no HPV, so probably will be more lenient. Our treatment also will be less radical. But if it comes in the background of high risk HPV, especially 16, 18, then probably our treatment and biopsies will be more aggressive, deeper biopsies will take, and lesion excision also will be little broader. So I always prefer to do a co-testing in a woman who is more than 30 years. I never simply do just a
Oh, that's an
pap smear.
interesting fact.
What is the vaccination you would recommend for prevention of cervical cancer?
HPV vaccine is there now since maybe 18-20 years.
Okay.
It's been approved, and I think initially it had its own course, as like any vaccine, the acceptability, usage, cost factor, and all that. But over the years, it has survived, and I think now it is the need of the decade now to utilize for mass vaccination.
Okay.
Though WHO has been forcing vaccination for all boys and girls from 9 to 15 years, and they also say, I will just brief how to take the vaccine also here. WHO says that all boys and girls from 9 to 15 years has to be mandatorily vaccinated for HPV, and then some would have missed this chance, so we call it catch-up vaccination, which can be done up to 27 years. So this 9 to 27 is the ideal time, they say, because 9 to 15 is usually they're not sexually active, they've never been exposed to the virus, so that's the ideal time to give vaccine when they've never been exposed. Catch-up vaccination, maybe if they're cultural based on the cultural background, even if they're active, maybe if they've not acquired HPV infection, the efficacy of that vaccine is very high till 27. So ideal time is this, but nevertheless, vaccine is approved from 9 to 45 years of age, irrespective of HPV testing, irrespective of your pap smear report, irrespective of all that. You can take vaccination as a separate protocol, even without checking your pap smear report, even without checking your HPV status, because they go parallelly, not hand in hand,
So
basically.
irrespective of the sexual activity, you can take it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They go parallelly. Pap
That's very, very
smear
important.
screening also should be continuing parallelly. Just because you have taken vaccine, some people think you need not screen. No, that is not there. You have to take vaccine also, you have to screen yourself also. Both go hand in hand, basically.
Very important.
So even if we vaccinate, pap smear testing is a mandate. So how much risk reduction happens with vaccination?
They have studied antibody levels, they have studied women over this last 15 to 18 years, and they have found that they are above more than 90% effective in preventing HPV infection. HPV infections, though they say 99%, cancers, though they say more than 90%.
Oh, that's a very high rate of cancer prevention.
And even precancerous like CAN2 and 3 and all that, they're saying above 95% prevention.
And so what about the age at which we start screening for this co-testing or pap smear and DNA, whether they're vaccinated or not?
Ideally, they say once you are sexually active, you should start within 3 years of being sexually active.
Okay.
But every country, the rules and regulations changes, the age of recommendation changes. UK, I think the recommended age is 25 years. Some say start at 21. But in India, what we say is 21, 25 itself. But they might not be sexually active at that time. So we
Right.
don't recommend them to go and do pap smear. So what ideally would be to do is, once you're sexually active, within 3 years of your first intercourse, start your screening.
So it's nothing like from 30 years of age pap smear testing.
Usually in unmarried, we don't do examination. Local examinations are taboo, and we are not doing also legally. We are not doing a genital examination. Then where do we take a smear from?
Correct.
So in India, we are not doing in unmarried individuals, not who are unmarried in the sense I am meaning to say not sexually active individuals.
Now, with respect to the vaccine, you told above 45 years. Does it apply even to men as well?
Yes.
It does apply to men. So even men
Yeah.
can
The
be vaccinated up to
regulations,
45 years.
the political regulations of vaccine varies with different countries.
Mhm. But with respect to India,
For some vaccines, yes, you have basically only 3 vaccines right now available. That is Gardasil 9, and our serum, our own Indian
Mhm.
vaccine. Indian vaccine, they have approved it totally, but the regulations, I don't know whether I can extrapolate the Gardasil to this one.
Mhm.
Why? Because we don't have the final data yet or the recommendations yet. But if you come to Gardasil and Gardasil 9, which have been there from last almost 18 to 20 years, you can use it from 9 to 45 years. Though in India, approval for Gardasil 9 is not there till 45.
Okay.
They are giving it only for 9 to 15.
Right.
But WHO says you can give it from 9 to 45. So I would say this is only a political barrier rather than a regulatory barrier rather than a scientific recommendation. So I think all 3 vaccines can be given 9 to 45 years. But yes, the efficacy of it will come down once you're sexually exposed, already exposed, or you're HPV positive. But nevertheless, some immunity is better than backing you is better than not having any immunity to fight it, because you are expecting your own body to fight the HPV. So if your vaccine boosts you a little, I think it is an added advantage.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
So, how safe is this vaccine, and how effective is it, and how cost effective is it?
If it was really unsafe, it would have not survived this tide of 20 years. There are no recorded events or proved events beyond having fever, pain, some infection, or some giddiness. None are proved. There are some vague reports of having some neurological problems 3 to 6 months later,
Mhm.
which can acquire with anything for that matter. A food poisoning, Guillain-Barré syndrome, any viral infection, all these things can occur just like that without any cause. So you cannot blame the vaccine retrospectively.
Correct.
But so none have been basically proven. I myself have taken it. I've given it to my son, and I vaccinate all my patients. Basically, it was an opportunistic vaccination because I'm a cancer surgeon. Whoever I see, I vaccinate them. So nothing has happened to my patients as such. So I think it's high time government takes up and makes it as a of prime importance and include in the national immunization.
And what about the effectiveness and the costing of it?
That is I think the biggest barrier to include in mass
National immunization program.
vaccination. That is why I think the promotion is only for female vaccination, because they are the ones affected rather than the men. Though worldwide and WHO says both needs to be vaccinated, because you have to cut the transmission also,
Right.
not only prevent the end product.
Yeah.
But somehow I think because of the cost factor, we were not able to vaccine. Now with the arrival of our own Indian make vaccine, which government has promised that it will be available at a very, very low cost to the public, and free vaccination to the school kids. So if it is it's already on the roll as pilot projects with the
Right.
FOXY. FOXY is nothing but a group of obstetrician and gynecologists of India. So they have been giving it, but it is not all India. They're taking
Correct.
it as certain villages or
Correct.
certain schools or certain provinces, and they're giving it. But it is not what do you say, like you give a BCG vaccine or
Yeah.
a polio vaccine. It's not yet in the national immunization.
So what will be the cost of a vaccine?
Cost will definitely come down with Indian make, but
What is the bulk?
Gardasil, if you really want to know the absolute cost, Gardasil costs around 1,800 to 2,500. Gardasil 9. The difference is Gardasil covers for 4 viruses, whereas Gardasil 9 covers for name itself says 9 viruses. So 9 costs around 8.5 to 10,000,
Right.
and it's not single dose you have to take. You have to take 3 doses.
Right.
But if you take it between 9 to 15 years, only 2 doses suffices. 0 and
What
6
interval?
months. 0 and 6 months, 9 to 15 years,
Mhm.
ideal age to take. But if you take it after 15 years, you have to take all 3 doses.
3 doses.
That is 0, 2, and 6.
0, second month, and
And 6th month dose.
So, can we say that male HPV vaccination can eliminate women's cervical cancer?
I would say yes, because transmission, if you don't stop transmission, and if you're only targeting the end stage disease, we will fail somewhere along the line. I think both should be started, but I am hoping for that, because the cost might come down with our own Indian make vaccine.
So in your clinical practice, do you also vaccinate patients who have already got cervical cancers? Like, for example, we see in India very advanced stages, 2B, 3. So most of the patients come to us as clinicians in those stages. So do you advise vaccinations for those patients as well who have got cervical cancers?
This is a very, controversial question. I don't know. It's a dilemma question. Theoretically speaking, see, HPV not only causes cervical cancer, it can cause vaginal cancer, vulval cancer, penile cancer, anal cancer, oropharyngeal cancer. So, theoretically speaking, if you vaccinate them, it might be useful, because it will help them ward off other
Strains that
other
they may
strains
not
also, other cancers also probably.
may not have acquired yet.
But there are no standard recommendations as such.
Right.
But out of the box, what I have been doing is, in certain cervical cancer survivors who come for checkup, I try to do a HPV testing in them to just check for vaginal HPV. So, and in those with vaginal HPV, I keep monitoring a little more compared to those who are HPV negative.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. If you have to give a message to Indian women today, how would you advise them against acquiring HPV, or even if they have acquired, to clear it off quickly?
One is good sexual hygiene. That means basically condom protection, but condom is not 100% protective. So I think good menstrual hygiene, good sexual hygiene, restraint, maybe.
Okay.
That is important while choosing your partners, because once HPV comes, if it goes off, it is okay, but if it causes cancer, it's a disaster in the make. Basically, it's a lot of suffering. Yes, there are a lot of new cures available in the market, but prevention is always better than cure. One of the most unique cancers, I would say, from head to toe you have hundreds of cancers, but cervical cancer is the only cancer where in 99% cause is known,
Yeah.
and this cause can be treated. Not only treated, it can be prevented also. So at least in this cancer, at least we can take the advantage of prevention.
Exactly.
Because in most of the other cancer, forget most, I think in all the other cancers, cause is not known in more than 50% of the cases. You cannot prevent it. You can't even sometimes treat them properly. So women should be self-aware, use good protection. A monogamous relationship, a faithful partner is also more important. But sometimes this is not in your hands. So along with that, yes, what you can do is spend more money on going to the doctor, even if you're normal. Get your regular pap smear year screening
Yes.
done once in 3 years. Get your HPV testing done once in 5 years. Get yourself vaccinated.
Perfect.
So even if not yearly, 3 yearly is sufficient.
3 yearly sufficient. They also say that if you do a co-testing, that is HPV and pap smear, you can do it once in 5 years.
Yeah.
But these are all American and European guidelines. In India, it is the second most common cancer. So I will be little scary and hesitant to do a testing once in 5 years. See, you do a test today, you are HPV negative. Then tomorrow you acquire the infection. Till next 5 years, you don't screen them as pap smear is little scary for me.
Right.
So I still do a 3 yearly pap smear and a 5 yearly HPV DNA
Okay.
stay.
Australia is at the verge of elimination of cervical cancer. Less than one case per year is reported because their national vaccination policy included HPV vaccination
Yes.
and of routine pap smear testing. Both happened. So vaccination and the screening. Now we know in India, less than 3% women undergo the pap smear testing. And vaccination, it's certainly it's on a positive note, it's increasing. But when we compare a percentage, it's less than 2 decimals. We know that for sure. So what actions should we take at a parent level, at a school level, at the government level to improve these rates? Because we know that it's still the second most common cancer in Indian women.
See, compared to other countries where vaccination acceptance is little low, Indian vaccination acceptance is very good.
Okay.
So childhood vaccination, you can see most of them are vaccinated based on IAP protocol,
Right.
pediatric. So I think that is the best time to catch and vaccinate them.
When
And
they're
later,
children.
yes, and then later you have to go to schools and then vaccinate. That's the best way you can do for prevention.
So target school going children
Yeah, yeah.
as a
First is-
national policy.
First is a national policy at 10th year when they get their 10th year DPT or your
Right.
booster. I
Right.
think that is the best time to vaccinate.
Right.
Pediatricians should take a stand and call on it. And if you vaccinate at that time, the parents are very accepting, very ready to do it.
Exactly.
So it's very easy to do it at that juncture.
Right.
And even if you miss, and if you can do a school vaccination,
Right.
because in UK and all, I think the schools, they give their reminder calls for vaccination and all that, which is not there in India.
Right.
So I think awareness is there, but acceptance and how to do it, how to go about is not there. So if government takes an initiative,
It can.
that is the best way to do.
I think human papilloma virus and cervical cancer, it is preventable and it is a lifestyle and immunity based disease. Thanks, Dr. Abhilasha, ma'am, for coming on our podcast and educating us. It's been a wonderful interaction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Same here.
much.
I'm honored also to be
Thank
here.
you so much.